WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. The Orioles taking on the Red Sox up at Fenway Park for a couple of days, which gives me a chance to seek out my friends old and new in Boston. I almost lost this guy as a friend. He came by Radio Row with Facebook Live, and I insulted the people of New England. But Tom Lydon, the people of New England are used to being insulted by the people of Baltimore, right? So when I looked into the camera and said, "You people suck, you cheated again," I meant every word of it, but I hope I didn't hurt any feelings. I mean, they did come back from a 4-touchdown lead, and I don't know how they cheated this year, but I think they probably did, right?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that intro either. Come on now. Give me a little love.
How you been, man? Oh, just winning championships and having parades and waiting for this next Red Sox parade, right, Tom?
Really, let's talk about what's the number one priority, and that's staying away from anybody who's wearing a Red Sox uniform, because this whole flu epidemic that has hit the team is unlike anything I've ever seen with any professional team. And it's gotten a lot of their big guys, and it really made a significant impact on this most recent series against the Tigers. I mean, the Twins are coming into Detroit after the Red Sox, and they've asked for the clubhouse to be fumigated. And I know that the Orioles have asked for the clubhouse to be fumigated at Fenway, and the Red Sox clubhouse has been fumigated at Fenway. So it was a pretty nasty bug that got a lot of these guys. And basically what it's led to is the Sox have not put their full roster on display but for 2 games this year, because immediately they had a bereavement issue, then they had the flu issue. It just hasn't been a very smooth start to the season, to say the least.
Oh, without a doubt. You and I have been doing this a long time, and I remember one time I was at the Vancouver Canucks had the mumps or something. I mean, it is kind of shocking with these guys living on top of each other, and I know there were staph infections in various sports and in college campuses and stuff like that, but it is amazing more teams don't sort of get wiped out a little bit. I know out in the Ravens complex, when you go in there, after October 1st, there's Purell everywhere, and as a guy who had a wife in the hospital for the better part of 3 years, I'm familiar with that, but this is a huge story to start the season for the Red Sox. They've had this happen to them. And you think, well, a week and a half and it'll go away, but you might be 2-8 by the time that happens, right?
No, you're right. And Nestor, it got even as far as the broadcast booth. Dave O'Brien was doing the game on Saturday, and he had to leave in the middle of the 6th inning.
Wow.
I've never seen that. They had their studio guy, Tom Caron, actually calling the game from Boston with Jerry Remy in the booth in Detroit. It was crazy, unlike anything you've ever seen. So, few hiccups, but some bright spots. Obviously, Chris Sale looked good to start his career with the Red Sox, and they didn't collapse. They're not 2-8, so all that is good.
You've been doing this a long time, and you've seen the washouts come in, and you've seen the Kurt Schillings and the Pedros come over and have no problem under the bright spotlight. The Chris Sale thing is interesting because it didn't work out so great for Crawford or for the Panda. Some guys have really gotten chewed up by the contract. I mean, even David Price has a lot to prove, clearly, right, for all the money that he's picked up and hasn't pitched any postseason victories yet. But Sale looks like, a guy cutting up jerseys on the south side of Chicago might have just enough moxie to make it in Boston, right?
He's got such filthy stuff, and he's such a straight shooter, and he doesn't seem to be as sensitive as David Price, because David Price, since he's been in the league, and I crossed paths with him in Detroit too, very sensitive, big rabbit ears, hears a lot of what's said about him and written about him, certainly in tune with that. And I don't get the sense that Chris Sale is very affected by what's going on around him as far as media or fans, that kind of stuff. He just wants to step on the mound and throw strikes and get people out. So not that David Price doesn't, but they're different makeups. And now, Price is hurt. We may not see him till the end of May, beginning of June. So, Sale's the guy, and so far so good.
Well, as far as deep depth and ascending players, I mean, the reason everyone loves the Red Sox this year would be this incredible crop of young players that, they got to get them out of bereavement, out of the flu. But, for Bogarts, for Betts, for Bradley, and now Benintendi, who gives everybody the guys my age, at least, and your age, Tom. We all remember Fred Lynn when we were young people. It is kind of weird how he channels Fred Lynn, right?
Yeah, very odd. It's odd that Benintendi has a swing that's almost a replica of what we saw from Fred Lynn. And then defensively, Jackie Bradley, talking about 2 different guys, kind of replicating one dude. But Bradley defensively has been just an absolute stalwart in center field, and he's dealing with a knee injury now. He was sent home early from Detroit, and the hope is that he's not going to be out for long. He's probably not going to go on the DL, but the promise that outfield shows is immense. And the other thing, which obviously has been a story as the season starts, is what's going to happen in terms of leadership on this team. And not just leadership on the field, but leadership in the clubhouse. And the big focus is who's going to replace David Ortiz. And I get that, but I think all of us have been in the situation, and Nestor, I'm sure you have too, where you've been surrounded and been fortunate to learn from a good leader. And that leader is there for a long time, and in many ways you defer to that leader. Well, it's almost like when you become a senior in high school or a senior in college, and you're like, all right, now it's my turn. I think any athlete is, at some level, a leader. And I think there are many guys within that Red Sox clubhouse who are able to step up and fulfill those responsibilities, from Dustin Pedroia in the clubhouse to on-the-field guys that we just discussed, the young guys, and Xander Bogaerts included with the three that play the outfield. I think people look forward to that opportunity, and they didn't want to really step on David Ortiz's toes, and they knew that this team was David Ortiz's team for so many years, but now the question becomes, whose team is it? And that happens only by what you see on the field. You're not going to have a guy who's striking out 4 times a game stand in the middle of the clubhouse and say, like, hey, follow my lead, I'm the leader. I think guys lead by what they do on the field. So it's going to be who comes up with the big hit, who's consistent, who's professional, who makes the big plays. Those are the guys who are going to emerge as leaders on this team. That's not an issue as far as I'm concerned with the Red Sox, though a lot of people have made it that. Now, understandably, who's going to get the big hit like David Ortiz got the big hit for so many years? That's a question that's legit.
He is Tom Lydon. He does sports anchor work at Fox 25 up in Boston. You can follow him at fox25boston.com, as well as at Tom Lydon. That's Leyden. He has a wonderful picture. I think you were sitting like 2 rows to my right or left. You have this same exact Super Bowl vantage point for the Patriots and the Falcons as I do. And I'll get to the Patriots before it's all over with at the end of this, but I want to stick on Red Sox. And it is interesting, when McPhail came to Baltimore to rebuild the Orioles, and part of this has been Tillman and Adam Jones and Machado, was we're gonna grow the arms and we're gonna buy the bats, and it's turned out to be the exact opposite in Boston, where the one weird part about all the pitching is all the pitching are rentals and free agent buys and deals out in the marketplace, that there is no sort of leadership through the pitching in the way that maybe there was when Clemens came through there 30 years ago.
It's a good point. I think a lot of the guys are a bit understated. There's not a real horse like Clemens was, or like Pedro Martinez was. And, I should point out, in the wonder of how we do this, Chris Sale just blew a lead. So maybe all that good talk about how it started out really well, not so much. He just got pulled bottom of the 8th inning, blowing a lead.
I would like to have that problem, to have our ace on the hill in the bottom of the 8th inning, Tom. That doesn't happen around here. You know what I mean?
He looked good until then.
Well, I mean, most of them do look. If you look good until the 8th, chances are you looked good until long enough to last at that point.
You know what? It speaks to one of the issues, though. I think there is a certain amount of hesitancy going to the bullpen, because the bullpen is just such a mess. And who's going to step up and who's going to fill the role of 7th-inning guy, 8th-inning guy? And there's so many clearly defined roles now in Major League Baseball. That's going to need to work itself out. But what we saw in the weekend series against the Tigers is that, hey, when it goes to the bullpen, you better be by your television or by your radio, because you have no idea what might happen.
A lot of pressure on Mitch Moreland, just in general, and even the Panda to some degree, who's been among a crop of disappointing free agents over the last 15 years for the Red Sox. But someone has to fill in for Ortiz, at least statistically, and that's hard enough. I mean, we talked about the leadership, but what happens to those 40 home runs and that 315 average and the 110 wall? I mean, all of that needs to be replaced on the field, and I think they believe that's going to happen through all the young players ascending, but that does put a little pressure on Mitch Moreland.
Yeah, no question. He started out, he was the first guy to get sick. He's the one who started this whole flu bug. So we didn't know that he was that sick coming in, but it turns out that he was the first guy. So I think he started 0 for 12 to start the year, and he was feeling the heat a little bit, but he came up with a couple of big hits against the Tigers over the weekend. And he's, what he's going to be. He's not going to be 40 home runs, but he's going to be your average guy. He's going to perform. He's going to put up good numbers relatively. And if you look at the 2016 results, what you're going to see from the Red Sox is, they scored a ton of runs, but there were games where they would score 11, 12 runs, and then there'd be other games where they couldn't score 2 or 3. It was a very odd year in that regard. So it's not like they were going out every day and scoring 6 or 7. I don't think that's the type of team that they were, and I don't think that's the type of team they're going to be this year either. You may not see those games where they're scoring 11, 12 runs in a single game. But you do expect this lineup to put up like 4 or 5 at least every game and give their pitchers a chance to get a win every time you go out.
Worried about the bullpen long term? I mean, certainly losing Koji. I know they've, Kimbrel's been, a little shaky last year to see where he's going to be in a pennant race. I worry about their bullpen. I mean, the Orioles have a pretty good bullpen, and I worry about the bullpen being overused here. I believe it's a quality bullpen. In Boston, you're hoping that, 3-4 nights a week, you don't have to bother with the bullpen to the 7th inning, right?
Yeah, and that is going to be an issue. And who's going to be the guy? And, they have people back there that you're just uncertain about. Joe Kelly was never really brought to the major leagues to be a reliever, and he's a guy who's going to be thrown into that role most likely, but they don't have the confidence in him yet to do that. Robbie Ross has been sick. He's been one of the guys who was hit by the flu, so we haven't really gotten a glimpse of what he's able to do. Matt Barnes has done a pretty good job. Robbie Scott's come in and pitched to 1 or 2 batters at a time and done the job. So it's going to be hit or miss. And I think that's not limited to any one team in Major League Baseball. I think the nature of baseball is that a bullpen is going to be hit or miss. If you're pitching in the bullpen, unless you're Jeff Nelson circa late 90s, early 2000s, there's not a lot of guys who are shutdown guys in the 7th and 8th inning.
I'm worried about the Patriots this offseason. They've done far too many things that I agree with. They're usually a little bit below the radar, and I'm the fool that's always underestimating. I'm thinking, well, I mean, Brady's getting older, and at some point they're going to, mail in a 9-win season or struggle, or the defense is going to struggle. They just retool, reload. Then the Richard Sherman rumors begin. Just when you thought that you hadn't seen them do everything, they come back from a 28-3 deficit, and it'd be hard-pressed to tell me there's anybody that's second place to their kind of off-season. What they've done the last 8-10 weeks since having a parade has been kind of amazing as well.
So cold-hearted, too. Just so efficient and cold-hearted in how they do business. I mean, the Malcolm Butler situation will play itself out, but, you're bringing in a guy in Stephon Gilmore who's getting paid such huge money, and just think about the concept of Gilmore and Butler in the same room going over a defensive game plan, and the cornerbacks coach or the secondary coach looks at the guys and says, okay, Malcolm, you're going to get the A guy, and Stephon, you're going to get the B guy. And yeah, I know, Stephon, you're making about $8 million more than Malcolm, but Malcolm, you're going to cover their top guy. I just think it leads to just a cringe-worthy reality in that room. But Malcolm has been a good soldier, at least publicly. He doesn't say anything, but his camp says he's definitely paid attention to what's going on around him. And who knows what might happen. He's going to have to sign that tender here before, I think, April 21st. And then once he does, he's at least committed for next season at 3.9, which is a whole heck of a lot more money than he was getting over his first 3 years of his career. But if it was you and it was me, we would most likely pay the guy. But that's not the way the Patriots do their business. So they got a year where they can kind of hang him out there and give him a raise to 3.9, but he's probably worth the $10 million that, Stephon Gilmore was getting, or even more. So, when Logan Ryan, who was on the other side of the field, goes down to Tennessee and gets a big payday, and Malcolm Butler, who's played a key role in 2 Super Bowl championships, is still, you hate to say floundering at nearly $4 million, but it's kind of perceived that way. It just hangs over your head a little bit. That's the only little negative that's been hanging over the Patriots this offseason. And who knows? They may end up trading him to the Saints or the Seahawks.
Do you believe Garoppolo will be a Patriot on April 30th, or do you believe that Belichick will, deal him off and get himself a low 1 or something like that? And certainly with all these quarterbacks, teams with needs for quarterbacks, and none of these quarterbacks in the draft looking to fill some of those needs, he's got a little piece of an arsenal there with the Garoppolo thing that was dangled around. Haven't heard much about that the last couple of weeks, though.
No, it has been somewhat dormant. I think that they're going to keep him. I just have a feeling that when you think that the right thing to do is A, the Patriots do B, and that's why they continue to win. And if you're hearing such strong belief that they want to hang on to this guy, they're going to hang on to this guy. So I think that Garoppolo will be here, and you and I would probably both pull the trigger and make the move because you know how valuable he is. You're also opening yourself up to some vulnerability. You're basically trying to get a first-round pick for a guy that played you, 5 quarters? Which is amazing that we're talking about that. But he played 5 quarters of football, and he's going to bring back a possible first-round pick. That's what they want, at least. So maybe they're going to sit on one more year and see what happens next year. I mean, next year they could conceivably franchise him, but I don't see him tying up that much money at 2 quarterbacks. So we'll probably be back in the same boat next year talking about Jimmy.
It is amazing how much shine goes off on a Matt Castle or a Ryan Mallett when they escape up there until they have to go do it on their own, right? I mean, Tom Brady makes it look easy for everybody, but it's not that easy.
No, it's not. And I think it's I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is probably more talented than Matt Castle was. I think that he has a more level head than Ryan Mallett ever will. He's a little bit different in that regard. He's probably a bit more talented than Brian Hoyer is. And, Hoyer has kind of bounced around the league, but has shown in spots that he can be an effective quarterback, if not a franchise guy. Maybe he'll get that opportunity over the next couple of years.
Hey, man, Hoyer's the only one to ever win a couple of games with the Browns, ever.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. So I think of all that crop, I think that Jimmy's probably the best based on the behind-the-scenes stuff that you've been exposed to and how he's comported himself. And, he played well when he actually got an opportunity in a game. Don't forget, Matt Castle, when he came in, he was inheriting a team that had gone undefeated the year before. So he had a lot of talented guys around him to help him to that 11-5 record. And, good for him that he's been able to maintain the career as long as he has.
Tom, always love having you on, man. Thanks for always making time. And, I'm sorry I insulted all your people up there, but we hate the Patriots around here. I mean, you don't expect me to sing the high hosannas of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. I mean, my question is always the same. What did they do to cheat this time? And we won't know that for a couple of years from this championship, I guess, right?
Nestor, in life, sometimes it's just more appropriate to take the positive spin. Right?
Well, I mean, they are the Patriots. I mean, what do you expect me to say? I want them to stop winning at some point. It doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. Brady might play till he's 45, right?
Take solace in the fact that once again you were able to whine and get a rule change that now people can't jump over the line because Shea McClellan embarrassed John Harbaugh by jumping over the line and blocking a field goal or an extra point. So you got that in your hat once again. Baltimore was able to get a rule change because they weren't happy with how the Patriots took advantage of a rule. So, we'll see what they're able to do next year.
Taking advantage of a rule. Some people might call that cheating, Tom. Some people. I'm just saying, right?
If you can jump over the line and block a kick and nobody says you can't, I'd jump over the line and block the kick too.
My favorite was still when he confused the officials in the playoff game. That we're still trying to figure that. I think John Harbaugh is as well. Tom, great having you on, man. We'll send everybody out to Tom Lydon to follow you as well as at Fox 25 Boston. And don't beat us up too much this week. We'll try to get even with you guys at Camden Yards next weekend, man.
Good stuff. Enjoy it, and have fun following the Caps, too. Hopefully you have some success against the Maple Leafs.
I'm hoping for I've cleared my calendar for the next 9 weeks. Hopefully I haven't jinxed them. But first things first, let's go win in Toronto. And I know the Bruins have their hands full with Ottawa as well. Enjoy the hockey, enjoy the hoops, and we'll see you soon, Tom. Thanks for coming on, bud.
Okay, Nestor, bye-bye.
Tom Lydon, a good man up there in Boston at Fox 25. You can follow him. It's Leyden. He has tens of thousands of followers, as well as a wonderful picture of what appears to be the national anthem at Houston Reliance Stadium, or whatever they call it, NRG. Hell, I was down there with him. I was sitting 10 feet away from him. It's a great picture, by the way, on his Twitter. That's Tom Lydon, Leyden, Fox 25, Boston. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. It's easy. It's fast. The morning newspaper is even easier. You just sign up once. Every morning at 7 a.m. it comes to your email inbox with box scores, standings, Luke's blogs, my stuff, video, audio, all of it's there for you. It is the WNST morning newspaper. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis Kolatzis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. Make sure you get on the WNST text service. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.